De Havilland DH-16 flying in 1919 as a modified 4-seat biplane cruiser powered by a single Rolls-Royce Eagle engine. Fokker F2 starting commercial journeys in 1919 with a single engine carrying 4 travelers inside an enclosed high-wing cabin. Handley Page W8 premiering in 1919 with twin Napier Lion engines carrying 12 passengers across the English Channel smoothly. Junkers F13 entering service in 1919 as the first all-metal passenger liner, flying 4 people on a single engine. Vickers Vimy commercial taking off in 1919 with twin Rolls-Royce engines carrying 10 passengers at 80 miles an hour in an enclosed pod. Blériot Spads 33 debuting in 1920 as a single-engine French biplane carrying 5 passengers in a cozy enclosed cabin. De Havilland DH-18 entering service in 1920 with a single Napier Lion engine carrying 8 passengers on early routes. Fokker F3 launching in 1921 with a single engine and offset cockpit flying 5 passengers across early European networks. De Havilland DH-34 debuting in 1922 with a single Napier Lion engine carrying 10 passengers on early imperial routes. Dornier Comet flying in 1922 as a single-engine all-metal utility liner carrying 4 passengers at 90 miles an hour smoothly. Farman F60 Goliath serving from 1922 with twin engines carrying 12 passengers inside a converted wartime bomber fuselage. Fokker F7 taking flight in 1924 as a famous trimotor flying 8 passengers across long distances at 100 miles an hour. Junkers G23 entering service in 1925 with 3 Junkers engines carrying up to 9 passengers in an all-metal frame. Junkers G24 debuting in 1925 as an upgraded 3-engine metal monoplane transporting 9 passengers across Europe. Armstrong Whitworth Argosy taking off in 1926 using 3 Jaguar engines to carry 20 passengers on early luxury flights. De Havilland DH-66 Hercules serving from 1926 with 3 Bristol Jupiter engines carrying 14 passengers on mail routes. Ford Trimotor taking off in 1926 using 3 radial engines to carry 11 passengers over rugged routes in an all-metal shell. Handley Page W10 entering service in 1926 with 2 Napier Lion engines transporting 14 passengers on cross-channel hops. Junkers G31 premiering in 1926 with 3 radial engines carrying 15 passengers inside an expanded metal cabin. Boeing 40 flying mail and passengers in 1927 with a single Pratt & Whitney radial engine carrying just 4 people up front. Fokker F8 launching in 1927 with 2 Bristol Jupiter engines carrying 15 passengers inside a white wooden fuselage. Lockheed Vega debuting in 1927 with a single radial engine flying 6 passengers at an impressive 135 miles an hour. Avro 10 entering service in 1928 with 3 Armstrong Siddeley Lynx engines carrying 8 passengers on Australian lines. Boeing 80 taking flight in 1928 using 3 Pratt & Whitney Wasp engines to transport 12 passengers in tri-motor luxury. Junkers G38 flying in 1929 as a giant 4-engine plane carrying 13 passengers inside the actual thick wings. Fokker F12 debuting in 1930 with 3 Pratt & Whitney Wasp engines flying 16 passengers on long-range KLM routes. Handley Page HP42 serving from 1930 with 4 radial engines carrying 24 passengers in unmatched imperial biplane comfort. Junkers Ju-52 launching in 1931, originally with a single engine before evolving into a legendary 3-engine global transport. Lockheed Orion speeding into service in 1931 with a single engine and retractable gear flying 6 passengers at 200 miles an hour. Armstrong Whitworth AW-15 Atalanta serving from 1932 with 4 engines flying 9 passengers on high-altitude African routes. Fokker F-18 entering service in 1932 with 3 Wasp engines carrying 12 passengers on long paths to the East Indies. Junkers Ju-52-3 is an iconic corrugated metal trimotor of 1932, flying 17 passengers anywhere in the world. Boeing 247 appearing in 1933 with 2 engines to fly 10 passengers with advanced retractable gear. Curtiss Condor T-32 entering service in 1933 with 2 Cyclone engines carrying 12 passengers in comfortable sleeping berths. De Havilland TH-89 Dragon Rapide flying in 1934 with twin Gypsy 6 engines carrying 8 passengers on short regional hops. De Havilland TH-86 Express, entering service in 1934 as a 4-engine regional biplane carrying 12 passengers smoothly. Douglas DC-2 taking flight in 1934 with 2 Wright Cyclone engines carrying 14 passengers and smashing domestic speed records. Lockheed Model 10 Electra debuting in 1934 with twin engines flying 10 passengers in sleek twin-tail, all-metal style. Short Scylla entering high-capacity service in 1934 using 4 Bristol Jupiter engines to carry 39 passengers cross-channel. Sikorsky S-42 flying boat using 4 Pratt & Whitney engines in 1934 to carry 37 passengers on Pioneer ocean tracks. Douglas DC-3 changing history in 1935 with twin radial engines carrying 21 passengers and making air travel profitable. Fokker F-22 flying in 1935 with 4 Wright Cyclone engines carrying 32 passengers in supreme cabin luxury. Martin M130, the legendary China Clipper flying boat of 1935, using 4 engines to carry 40 passengers over oceans. Short Sion Senior entering service in 1935, using 4 small Popjoy radial engines to carry 9 passengers on local seaplane links. Lockheed Model 12 Electra Jr. taking off in 1936 with twin engines carrying 6 passengers in a fast downsized cabin. Short Empire flying boat appearing in 1936 with 4 Pegasus engines flying 24 passengers in unmatched multi-deck luxury. Focke-Wulf FW200 Condor flying in 1937 with 4 engines to carry 26 passengers across long ranges smoothly. Lockheed Model 14 Super Electra arriving in 1937 with twin engines and Fowler flaps carrying 12 passengers very fast. Savoia Marchetti SM-75 serving in 1937 with 3 engines carrying 24 passengers on long pre-war Italian lines. Armstrong Whitworth AW-27 entering service in 1938 with 4 engines carrying 40 passengers in huge cabins. Boeing 307 Stratoliner flying in 1938 with 4 engines carrying 33 passengers high above bad weather. Boeing 314 Clipper debuting in 1938 with 4 engines carrying 74 passengers in absolute ocean luxury. De Havilland DH-91 flying in 1938 with 4 engines carrying 22 passengers inside an aerodynamic wooden shell. Junkers Ju-90 launching in 1938 with 4 radial engines carrying 40 passengers on early long-distance high-capacity networks. Douglas DC-5 debuting in 1939 as a unique high-wing twin-engine airliner carrying 16 passengers before wartime production halted. Lockheed Model 18 Lodestar taking flight in 1939 with 2 powerful engines carrying 18 passengers in an extended cabin. Curtiss C-46 Commando entering service in 1940 with 2 powerful radial engines hauling heavy cargo and up to 40 passengers. Avro York flying in 1942 using 4 Rolls-Royce Merlin engines to carry 24 passengers using a converted Lancaster wing. Douglas DC-4 arriving in 1942 with 4 engines to transport up to 80 passengers across global long-haul routes safely. Latécoère 631, the giant French flying boat of 1942 using 6 engines to carry 46 transoceanic passengers. Lockheed Constellation introducing triple-tail elegance in 1943, with 4 engines flying 40 passengers with pressurized speed. Avro Lancastrian serving from 1945 as a speedy converted bomber using 4 Merlin engines to carry 9 passengers on long mail routes. Avro Tudor entering service in 1945 with 4 Rolls-Royce Merlin engines carrying up to 60 passengers in a pressurized cabin. Bristol Type 170 debuting in 1945 with twin engines and clamshell doors carrying passengers and cars on short hops. De Havilland DH-104 Duff flying in 1945 with twin Gypsy Queen engines carrying 8 passengers on short feeder lines. Handley Page Hermes launching in 1945 with 4 radial engines carrying 40 passengers on early British post-war long-haul networks. Short Sandringham flying in 1945 as a converted military flying boat carrying 30 passengers in comfortable multi-deck style. S&K's SE-161 Languedoc debuting in 1945 with 4 engines carrying 33 passengers across Europe. Vickers VC-1 Viking entering service in 1945 with twin radial engines carrying 27 passengers on post-war regional flights. Douglas DC-6 improving networks in 1946 with a pressurized cabin and 4 engines carrying 68 passengers over long distances. Short Solent flying boat premiering in 1946 using 4 Bristol Hercules engines to carry 34 passengers on luxury routes. Airspeed Ambassador entering service in 1947 with 2 Bristol Centaurus engines carrying 47 passengers inside a beautifully streamlined fuselage. Boeing 377 flying in 1947 with a lower deck lounge carrying 60 passengers across oceans. Convair CV-240 taking flight in 1947 with twin Pratt & Whitney radial engines carrying 40 passengers efficiently. De Havilland Canada DHC-2 Beaver launching in 1947 with a single engine carrying 6 passengers into remote wilderness strips. Ilyushin IL-12 entering service in 1947 with twin radial engines carrying 32 passengers across Soviet routes. Martin 202 debuting in 1947 with twin radial engines carrying 36 passengers on unpressurized American commuter runs. Saab 90 Scandia debuting in 1950 with twin Pratt & Whitney engines carrying 32 passengers across Scandinavian routes. SNK SEC 2010 Armagnac launching in 1950 as a massive 4-engine long-distance liner carrying 84 passengers smoothly. Vickers Viscount, the world's first turboprop liner in 1950, using 4 Rolls-Royce Dart engines to carry 40 passengers with low vibration. Convair CV-340 launching in 1951 with an elongated pressurized fuselage carrying 44 passengers on medium hops. De Havilland Canada DHC-3 Otter debuting in 1951 using a single powerful radial engine to carry 10 passengers into rugged bush terrain. Lockheed Super Constellation stretching into service in 1951 with 4 compound engines carrying 95 transoceanic passengers. Martin 404 debuting in 1951 with a pressurized cabin and twin engines flying 40 passengers on modern regional networks. Bristol Britannia nicknamed the Whispering Giant in 1952 using 4 Proteus turboprops to carry 100 passengers in quiet luxury. Breguet 763 de Ponce serving in 1953 with a double-deck fuselage carrying 107 passengers safely. Douglas DC-7 marking the peak of piston speed in 1953, using 4 compound engines to fly 100 passengers coast to coast. De Havilland DH-114 flying in 1954 as an extended 4-engine light liner carrying 14 regional passengers. Convair CV-440 Metropolitan entering service in 1955 with improved soundproofing flying 52 passengers in comfort. Ilyushin IL-14 debuting in 1956 with twin radial engines carrying 32 passengers as a rugged standard in cold climates. Antonov AN-10 taking off in 1957 with 4 Progress turboprops carrying 100 passengers from unimproved grass runways. Ilyushin Il-18 launching in 1957 with 4 Kivchenko turboprop engines carrying 100 passengers on long Soviet routes. Lockheed L-188 Electra arriving in 1957 with 4 turboprops to speed 98 passengers on short routes. Lockheed L-1649 Starliner debuting in 1957 with a massive ultra-long-range wing and 4 powerful piston engines. Tupolev Tu-114 Russia, the fastest propeller plane ever using 4 giant turboprops to carry 120 people in 1957. Fokker F-27 Friendship debuting in 1958 with twin Rolls-Royce Dart turboprops carrying 40 passengers as a classic transport. Grumman Gulfstream 1 entering airline service in 1958 with twin Dart turboprops carrying 24 passengers at high speed. Antonov AN-24 debuting in 1959 as a rugged twin turboprop carrying 50 passengers across tough unpaved Siberian networks. Convair 540 converting older airframes in 1959 into sleek turboprops with twin Napier Eland engines carrying 48 people. Fairchild F-27 built under license in 1959 using twin Rolls-Royce Dart turboprops to carry 40 passengers efficiently. Handley Page Dart Herald launching in 1959 with twin Rolls-Royce Dart turboprops carrying 50 passengers on rugged short tracks. Vickers Vanguard flying in 1959 with a double-bubble fuselage and 4 large turboprops carrying 130 passengers. Convair 580 upgrading regional fleets in 1960 using 2 Allison 501 turboprops to fly 50 passengers fast. Harbin Y5 entering service in 1960 as an enduring single-engine biplane airliner carrying 12 passengers on rugged utility routes. Hawker Siddeley HS 748 flying in 1960 with twin Dart turboprops carrying 50 passengers on dependable routes. Aviation Traders Carvair debuting in 1961 as a nose-loading ferry carrying 25 passengers and 5 cars inside a DC-3 airframe. Namsui's 11, the classic Japanese regional airliner of 1962, using twin Rolls-Royce Dart turboprops to carry 60 passengers. Nord 262 flying in 1962 with twin turbomaker Bastan turboprops carrying 29 passengers on regional flights. Short SC7 Skyvan, the boxy twin-engine utility airliner of 1963, carrying 19 passengers into tight unpaved runways. Convair 600 introducing Rolls-Royce Dart turboprop conversions to the Double 40 fleet in 1965, carrying 44 passengers. Convair CV 640 upgrading classic airframes in 1965 with twin Rolls-Royce Dart turboprops carrying 56 passengers. De Havilland Canada DHC-6 Twin Otter arriving in 1965 with twin PT-6 turboprops flying 19 passengers on wheels offloads. Beechcraft Model 99 entering service in 1966 with twin turboprops carrying 15 passengers to pioneer commuter markets. Fairchild Hiller FH227 stretching the baseline design in 1966 to carry 52 passengers on American lines. Antonov AN-24RV adding an auxiliary turbojet engine in 1967 to help 50 passengers lift off safely from high-altitude strips. Handley Page Jetstream debuting in 1967 with twin turboprops carrying 16 passengers inside a pressurized commuter design. Embraer EMB 110 Bandeirante launching in 1968 with twin turboprops carrying 20 passengers across Brazilian lines. Antonov AN-28 flying in 1969 with twin turboprops and a twin tail carrying 17 passengers on remote networks. Let L410 Turbolet entering service in 1969 with a streamlined pressurized fuselage carrying 19 passengers at high speed. Britain Norman Trislander introducing a unique 3-engine piston design in 1970 carrying 18 passengers on short island hops. Cossack 212 Aviocar entering airline service in 1974 with twin turboprops carrying 26 passengers from rugged strips. Shorts 330 entering service in 1974 with twin turboprops carrying 30 passengers inside a roomy square cabin. Antonov AN-26 entering passenger service in 1975 with twin turboprops carrying 40 people on rugged regional lines. De Havilland Canada DHC-7-7 flying in 1975 with 4 quiet turboprops carrying 50 passengers from very short runways. Dornier 228 launching in 1981 with an advanced thin-wing profile carrying 19 passengers on short routes. Dornier 228 launching in 1981 with an advanced thin-wing profile carrying 19 passengers on short routes. Shorts 360 launching in 1981 as a stretched single-tail twin turboprop carrying 36 commuter passengers. Beechcraft 1900 debuting in 1982 with twin turboprops carrying 19 passengers at high speeds across regional lines. BAE Jetstream 31 launching in 1980 with twin turboprops flying 19 passengers on popular corporate and regional routes. Harbin Y12 debuting in 1982 with twin Pratt and Whitney turboprops carrying 17 passengers from short unpaved runways. Embraer EMB 120 Brasilia debuting in 1983 with twin fast turboprops carrying 30 passengers on modern routes. Saab 340 launching in 1983 with twin modern turboprops carrying 34 passengers on short regional flights. ATR 42 debuting in 1984 with twin Pratt and Whitney turboprops flying 42 passengers on highly efficient regional routes. Cessna 208 Caravan debuting in 1984 with a single reliable PT6 turboprop hauling 14 passengers on short routes. De Havilland Canada DHC-8-8100 debuting in 1984 with twin turboprops flying 37 regional passengers. Xi'an Y-7 entering service in 1984 as a Chinese-built twin turboprop airliner carrying 50 passengers across regional networks. Fokker 50 modernizing regional fleets in 1985 with electronic flight displays and twin turboprops carrying 50 passengers. British Aerospace ATP premiering in 1986 with twin Pratt & Whitney turboprops flying 64 passengers with quiet fuel efficiency. ATR-72 launching in 1988 as a stretched regional twin turboprop carrying 74 passengers worldwide. De Havilland Canada DHC-8-8300 stretching into service in 1989 carrying 50 passengers on short regional lines. Ilyushin IL-114 debuting in 1990 with twin advanced turboprops carrying 64 passengers on regional routes. British Aerospace Jetstream 41 stretching into service in 1991 with twin turboprops carrying 29 passengers smoothly. Dornier 328 debuting in 1991 with high-speed twin turboprops carrying 33 passengers comfortably. Saab 2000 speeding into service in 1992 with powerful twin turboprops carrying 50 passengers at near-jet velocities. De Havilland Canada DHC-8-8200 pairing the compact original fuselage with powerful modern engines in 1995. De Havilland Canada -8Q400 premiering in 2000 with advanced active noise suppression carrying 78 passengers fast. Antonov AN-38 stretching into service in 1994 with twin Honeywell turboprops carrying 27 passengers efficiently. Antonov AN-140 debuting in 1997 with twin turboprops carrying 52 passengers on modern regional flights. Kian MA-60 debuting in the year 2000 with advanced Western twin turboprops carrying 60 passengers across modern regional systems. Kian MA-600 introducing improved cabin systems and twin turboprops to transport 60 passengers comfortably. Viking Air Twin Otter Series 400 reviving production in 2010 with digital cockpits carrying 19 passengers to rugged locales. LED L410NG modernizing the classic line in 2015 with upgraded General Electric turboprops carrying 19 passengers. Cessna 408 Sky Courier entering service in 2022 with twin Pratt & Whitney turboprops carrying 19 passengers modernly.